To begin with, I want to ask you guys a quick question. So, in the last year, how many of you guys have used anything made of bamboo? You can raise your hands. It can be a bowl, it can be like a piece of furniture. Great, okay. And my second question is keep your hand raised if you have seen or been in a bamboo forest or planted a bamboo ever. And has anybody planted? Okay. Um, the reason, I find this interesting because, most of us, we see bamboo as a product, and very few of us actually see or spend time in a bamboo forest or see bamboo as a system. So I think this is what I want to talk about today is about bamboo as a system, and not as only just a product. So,
If you want it, it's here. Okay.
oh yeah, I might.
You do want it?
I might need it actually.
fine.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Thank you. So, my name is Priyanka. Hello. Yeah. Okay. So, I'm an architect. I'm the founder and also an architect, principal architect in Bamboo Ugam. This is based in this one. We're based here in Zunzar Machi Homestead. It's our family homestead that, my parents regenerated this 200 acres of land where we live now. Yeah. So this is the look about it. This is the valley where you have.
Okay.
No. Sorry. Okay.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. So that's Torna Fort. That is Rajgarh, which recently got the title for UNESCO. And this is a ridge of the valley. So it's a beautiful hike to climb up Rajgarh, do this little hike at night, and get down from Torna. So it's a very beautiful space. And this is our forest homestead right here. So I do go hiking once in a while because Torna is my backyard and Rajgarh is my front yard. So that is basically, this is Rajgarh, Pali Darwaza, which is the door over there when you climb, and that is Torna Fort up there. And the forest is somewhere here. Then you have, this is a view from Torna. So this is actually any fort, if you see, the ends of the forts on the mountains, they're called machis. And this is called Zunzar Machi. And the forest is, this is this bit. This is why we named it Zunzar Machi Homestead. So this landscape, it's shaped by, centuries of ecological relationships between the forts, the rivers, and the monsoons over there. So last few years, or 20 years, my parents planted a lot of trees for regeneration of the space, and including bamboo as well, because bamboo is planted on the slopes to improve the water retention and also the soil retention, and basically, in general, improving the health of the land, because we're at the watershed area where we're also in our village, in the valley where we come from. It is the source of a river called Gunzavni, which also then it's a tributary to another big river called Kanandi. So yeah. When I started out, honestly, I didn't think about bamboo in such a deeper way that I think now. It was more about me thinking, okay, I want to use it as an architectural element. But I think more I got into it, I feel like at some point, bamboo stopped being a material for me, and it became something that was teaching me a lot of things about design. So if someone would have told me before that, Priyanka, bamboo is totally going to change the way you think, I wouldn't have believed them. So yeah. And the reason you plant bamboo or anything in regeneration is to create an impact or support different systems in the same place. So particularly this species of fungus, it only comes at the bottom of bamboo, so you cannot find it anywhere else. And they're very pretty. You get different colors. It's pretty. Okay, the next one also is the pagoda ants which make the nest. So I started observing, because what happened was, before I was there, I would look at it in a lens of an architect. So it was about looking at the view and the orientation of the building and so on. And then slowly I started to notice how the plant, bamboo as a plant, was integrated, and it was a bit more deeper than it just being like a material that one uses for whatever. So, yeah. So one of the lessons that I learned, I'm going to be sharing a couple of things that I learned while, in this journey of me exploring this material. One of it is bamboo and the time, because I like to tell this to people. So this actually is a picture, oh, sorry. This actually is a picture of just a view from one of the roads of the forest. And here, my sister and my parents, they planted a teak like about 10 years ago, or 12 years ago, I think. And at the same time, we also planted like another new batch of bamboos that same season right next to it. But I quickly realized that, with regeneration, it's a different meaning when you think about it in the angle of bamboo, because this becomes a material in my lifetime, because I can see its entire ecological cycle from it being, like it grows, I can see how it grows, I can harvest it, I treat it, I can design and build with it. But with teak, I think it's going to be used by probably the next generation, because so that kind of like puts you in a perspective. So another thing is that when I started out with working with bamboo, I didn't know much about it, but slowly I started to get fascinated, and it was something really simple that, the facts were that bamboo cover in India is about 156,000 square kilometers. So roughly 247 acres is 1 square kilometer. So do the math, And interestingly, most of it is in Madhya Pradesh, like majority, well, not majority, but you see the numbers. And Maharashtra also has like a pure bamboo systems over there, because they grow naturally in these regions. And we are actually the second richest bamboo diversity after China. So just another quick question. I'm going to ask many quick questions. How many species of bamboo do you think India has? Guess, anyone? 4? That's a very sad number. Any other guesses? Okay. Sorry?
More than 1,000?
Still far away. Still not warm enough. But okay. Sorry? Warm, okay. No, it's 136. So imagine that's like one of the largest diversities in bamboo species you get, and we're like the second largest ones after China. But the sad part about this is, in India, still there are very few people that are actually looking at this as an opportunity. And one second. But, sorry guys, I have to make sure I give you all the points, so I have to quickly skim through certain things.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so the one thing I want to mention is that, the government of India also is like recognized it before. And, have you guys heard of the National Bamboo Mission, anyone? Okay, it's just a government body that has invested heavily in promotion of like bamboo livelihoods, bamboo cultivation, and value addition in the sector of bamboo. But the reason that they've done it, because it's a very simple reason, I guess, because it sits in bamboo as a material, it sits in the intersection of ecology, rural livelihoods, craft, and industry. And again, one thing led to another. I focused on it, I traveled, I met some people who are in the sector, and it turns out that there is a lot of gaps, significant gaps in the entire value chain system of bamboo. Because what happens is the farmers, they grow bamboo, they cultivate it. Then there are designers who hardly, or some of them, very few, understand the material itself. Then there are these researchers who research bamboo, but it's outside of the industry. So it's really like there's no connection amongst themselves as well. And then you have suppliers who cannot tell the consumers like what is the age of the bamboo, is it like used for what. So this sort of creates like this, I looked at this as an opportunity, because I was like, okay, the great way could be for me to figure out like how I can sort of try to bridge the gaps in all these different aspects. This is a very beautiful day we had when we harvested about 3 trucks of bamboo, and that time I was selling them. I've stopped selling a single piece now. I'll get to that in a minute, but yeah. These are all our local village folks who they've been working with us for the past 20 years, and there's so much to learn from them about bamboo. Okay. So, we usually just say it very simply, right? That, okay, bamboo, but it's not just bamboo because bamboo is actually quite diverse. There's like multiple species like we've established, right? So you've got each of the species, they have their own characters. So some of them have like different wall thicknesses. They behave differently, they react differently to different chemicals, well, for treatment. Some of them are hollow, some of them are not. So today, of course, I'm going to focus on the two that are locally like available to us, also in Dandeli. It works, yeah. So one is Pseudoxynanthera madhavi, which is, this is interesting. This one actually got discovered in 2020 by a university professor in Pune University. And he named it Madhavi after, I think I have to check why. But yeah, both the species, the other one is, the spelling is wrong here, guys. It's Stocksii. Strictus is a different one. So Dendrocalamus stocksii is another species. Interesting part about both of these is that if you notice, I'm going to be a bit like an anatomy sort of a session here, a little bit. So if you look at this bamboo, right, is there anything different that you notice about it from the regular? Yeah. Okay, the solid part was correct. Or yeah, it's not hollow. So we have this kind of a woody bamboo, which is naturally found, and it is thriving a lot in the Konkan belt. And you have that very nicely growing. It's like got used to the humidity. It's got a perfect weather to grow. And some of these similar genres are also you'll find them in parts of Africa. So when it's a different species, this is what we have. Even if I did a little course in Bali as well about learning about bamboo, because the species that they have is asper, that you also find in northeast of India. So that's not hollow at all. That's very easy to break. It's a soft bamboo. This one is not. So again, back to the anatomy is the fact that, do you see these dots on the outside and then they sort of like start dispersing away from each other on the inside? It's because these are the vascular bundles that are closely packed to each other. And most of the strength, all of the strength of bamboo lays only on the outside. So inside, you can see, and these vascular bundles, usually in wood you have fiber, right? In bamboo, you've got these bundles which travel and they supply all the foods and things, nutrients that the bamboo needs to grow. And they only grow vertically. So that's one of the different sort of difference between, and also one more thing I should have started in the beginning, bamboo is a grass. It's one of the largest grass, it's not a plant or a tree. But in wood, if you notice the fibers, right, the grains, they sort of like cross over each other. So the way you cut it, the kind of carpentry that is like evolved with humans like building crazy things with it, is because they got to know and to understand the material. So I think every time I think about bamboo, I always think there's so much more you can do with it, because then I'll show you how we construct eventually in a moment. So this is how it looks in the forest. If you notice these little colors that we've given here. Bamboo, again, what it does is, when it grows at its full height in the first 3 months when it's come out as a shoot. So 3 months, but then it's still a baby. Like if you want to make anything with it, you need to let it mature. And with bamboo, maturity is nothing but the sugar or the starch content in bamboo has to reduce. So between, ideally, like it works with different species, but like for furniture, the species that I use is the Stocksii one. We harvest it every 3 years. Hence, we color bamboo every year as it grows. So we know for a fact that it's the best way to, when you're telling a client, that customer, if you want to give them a product, you need to know, the designer needs to know where everything comes from. So, yeah. So we color code them. That's the system we use. So this is Stocksii. Actually, if you notice it carefully, like maybe we can walk around, see a bamboo, I can explain you. You can actually tell what age it is without color coding it as well. It's very easy. One thing I want to also add is in terms of design, right? When I had a backpacking sort of a trip in Japan last year for 2 months, and I kind of went around and I quickly, I knew this before, but I also it became very clear in my mind that bamboo as a material over there, it was not treated as an eco material, right? It was, you could walk around, you could find it on some architectural elements. It was in the fences. It was in the tea tools. And one second. Yeah. So I feel it got me thinking, like, what happened to bamboo in India? Like, why is no one able to, like, think about it in a different way? Why does bamboo have to prove itself every single time? Because even as I get clients, you know, they will ask me, can I have garden furniture? And then I just make a face like, no, we don't. We only make interior, because bamboo is not supposed to be used outside. Neither is cane, because the more you keep, I mean, it's a natural material in the end of the day, and the sun damages it and, like, sort of damages it, like, structurally. So in the villages, so there are two things. What I realized, like, people have put bamboo in two different, like, extremes, right? One is they think that bamboo is either cheap or a temporary sort of material, or it's a poor man's timber. That's what they've been saying the whole time. But in the villages, this is the pictures of, like, houses in my neighborhood. We've got, like, these, we call it yerla in Marathi. This is a raincoats that they use while planting rice. This one is just a basket. I think I need to know what they do with this. This is a goat shed, and these are fences. Okay, so the second aspect, first one was the part where I said it was like temporary structures, and the second part is the fact that it is used as a sustainability marketing tool. It's not, again, bamboo has to prove itself, and it's put in this tag, right? But then it got me thinking that what would it mean if bamboo was simply just beautiful? Like, if people would buy it because it was beautiful, it was warm, and it was having good it would last longer, and so on. So this became like one of the core thoughts when we started Bamboo Ugam. So when we quickly realized that, what we did was we placed, we thought, okay, we need to put respect in this material. So with all due respect, we started this little study called With All Due Placement. So we would put bamboo pieces that we made very silently in multiple, like, architectural spaces, and we would photograph them or just have a discussion about how it sits really well. And it gives you, like, a nostalgia, because this does not stand out. It sort of fits in and it integrates with the entire space. I will talk a bit about this piece. It's a, well, ottoman and a chair that we made, and ergonomically it's supposed to, like, once you sit in it, you don't want to get out of it. So it's a long sitting sort of a chair. And this thing that you see, the bamboo leaves on there, they're done with sashiko style stitching, and it took 7 days for the embroidery. She's a friend of mine. She took 7 days to make it, like, non-stop. Yeah. So another one is this little bench. And a friend of mine, again, he has a beautiful architectural studio, and he has turtles. He was like, cool, like, let's see how it looks. And he didn't want to let me take it. I was like, listen, I'll give it to you later. But anyway, this is another piece. This is made, we stain bamboos. We work with different finish techniques. So what we've done here is we've used Danish cords as well as paper cords. And if you twist it open, it's just paper. Yeah, and for the Bangalore people, you guys have, we got it from there, so I don't know. That's the only place in India where we found it, so yeah. Okay, so another thing I will be adding as a lesson is when we talk about regeneration in bamboo. Hold on. Yeah. Regeneration basically is more complex than, you know, bamboo is usually coined as, oh, it's carbon effective. When you plant bamboo, it helps you with carbon sequestration, so on. Yes, it's brilliant, you know, it's a great material, it's a great plant, and it produces large amount of biogas, because the leaf litter that sort of falls every summer, it gives like a really good nutrients rich space, you know, for things to thrive. So, but it doesn't mean that it's, I mean, it's more bigger than carbon, right? Bamboo, if it's a monoculture bamboo plantation without biodiversity, it's not regeneration, because it's not helping anything otherwise. So when we think about regeneration at Zunzar Machi, we think, I mean, what does it mean to us? So these are certain questions that we ask when we were planting it, and when we always plant it every year. So we ask if, does it support biodiversity? Does planting bamboo support the water systems? I mean, everything is a yes. So, does it support the local livelihoods, the craft traditions, and does this reconnect people with materials? Yeah. So these questions, they matter just as much to us. This is my favorite part. So the way I see it is like bamboo and like products that we make, it's not only about the finished product. There's a lot of things that go behind or before it. So we have this circle or the cycle that we follow when we build anything. And it's like a bamboo, the reason we talked about it being I mean, I didn't mention it now, but when we've talked about it before, I call it a slow material because bamboo is a natural material. It has its own moods. If I harvest it in May time, and if it doesn't get time to dry, it's going to put on fungus and I cannot use the material. So it's very systematic. Like there's a certain season that I can harvest it. There's a certain time that I can treat it. So it's all like a system. So firstly, we have this forest landscape, which is at the forest. Then we grow and cultivate it, like I explained, with the color coding system. Then we have the harvest process, which is super cool. Like all the village folks, we all come together. It's like 4 days of work, and we all work and cut the bamboo, count it, everything. Then comes the treatment. So when I say treatment, it's essentially to improve the durability and storage time for bamboo. So what happens with that is you take, essentially there's starch in bamboo. So you just replace it with boric borax, which is the salts. And then the borers will not have anything to eat. So your bamboo is safe for a while. Then we have the design and craft process. So honestly, right now we're keeping it a small sort of a space for us because we get a lot of time then to do research and development in this sector. Because each bamboo pole is, I mean, I'll show you, is different. When we design something, it needs to be like specific to the diameter of the pole. Otherwise, it's not going to work out. So it's all handcrafted. Like I have this amazing team who's one of them, the head craftsman, is like experienced for the last 20 years. Incredible. And he teaches me a lot. And we sit and we design, we build at least 3 to 4 prototypes. So this is where we come. We craft and build. And a lot of things are like failures, but then we learn from them. I think that's the exciting part. Then we have the experience. So at the forest, we do have a big space where you can come, walk around, enjoy the forest, and really sit under a bamboo grove. Yeah. And learn and share. So when we do the R&D part, we make sure that everything's documented. So from the percentage of wastage, the amount of energy that is used, everything is recorded. So then I know every time we keep getting better, and then I can also share it with people. And yeah. Then of course, every year we plant another 1,000 or 500 bamboos every year, as much as we can, until we can. So yeah. We have that. And it's a whole circle, guys. So this is how we work. And you can just read this part quickly, quietly. No, it's not done yet. Oh, okay, you can clap whenever you want. Sorry, so I'm happy. I'll take it, I'll take it. So I want you to... Yeah.
The thing is that you are not only creating beautiful interior designs, but also you have created this whole cycle.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the local folks, it's amazing. Yeah, not me. So if you take a moment, guys, I'm gonna scroll like one or two pictures. I want you to see and I'm grateful for them. So yeah, this is Ashok Dada. He lives right above behind our house. Yeah, he comes when the harvest season is there. And now he's so interested, he wants to come and work with us. Like the craftsman, now we're building a bamboo fence across our 5 acres of part where we live. And now he's so interested, he used to be, okay, now he's not here, but he used to have a drinking problem. He's quit, and now he's here with us, and hopefully he stays and he doesn't go to the wrong people in the village. So that's him. This is Sangeeta Maushi. She also comes, she's been there with my parents, and now she also is there and she teaches me as well. This is our craftsman team, Suresh Dada and Pandurang Dada. Okay, so to my favorite part, which I always like to talk about. This is one of the pieces that we made recently. So I'll just show you a couple. I'll show you a couple of them. So this one is called the slunk chair. Again, it's because I want people to sit there for longer, and it's a little bit low. So it's great for places like this with, yeah, calm places where you guys are sitting. You know. What we did here was we did a walnut stain on the bamboo. And this is bio-leather, so it's made from tomatoes. Again, sourced from Bangalore, from a company called, yeah. Bio-leather. It's called bio-leather, yeah.
Company? It's called
Bio-leather, yeah. Then, yeah, this is the angles that we did. So the process went, I'll also explain you a bit of the process if I remember it. What we do is like, we test out the angles and stuff like that. So we 3D model the building, the chair. We draw it, we get the dimensions, we test it out a couple of times, and that's when it comes like this, yeah. So what happens, like I mentioned before, the poles, each pole is different. And when you harvest it, you have 3 sections of the bamboo that you segregate. The bottom section is structurally strong because it's more, how do you say, fuller. And as you go on the top, the bamboo starts to taper. At a certain, at every node, it starts to go inside. So the middle part is usually used for the secondary joinery that you see here and here. And the top part, I'll show you what we do now with it, because we were having this problem, like what are we going to do with it? So I'll show you. And so this is a little tool that we made. It's just like multiple holes drilled in a bamboo, and we check every time what piece to choose for each product that we make. So coming back to the part where we talked about what we do with the top part, this is what we do. So we get, I started making these lamps recently, last year. And we use banana fiber for the paper. So one of my friends, he owns a paper factory who made old chunk. I mean, there's a big batch of banana fiber left, so I bought the whole thing from him. Yeah. And this is another piece. It looks like steel, but it's not. It's bamboo stained. And we tried out some lanterns as well. So usually, like if you see, in Japan, I've seen they use bamboo strips. But we had not used our bamboo because our bamboo is super hard, and if you like twist it, it's gonna break straight away. But we tried it out. We don't have a machine because the machines don't work on most of the bamboos we have. So it was all handmade. So the artisans spent like days of just, even I was there, we made like little strips and round poles of bamboo. And we sort of, structured them. So these cute lanterns for a client. Okay, so when we do, like I do also work in architecture. I'm slowly building a space there where I'll experiment. Every time I get some extra bamboo, I'm gonna do it. So the one way we do it is like a mock-up. So this is a 1:20 scale architectural model that we give the craftsmen because they cannot read the drawings. And it's a bit complicated to explain this when it's with bamboo.
But what's the structure?
Oh, this is supposed to be a bamboo lab. I'll get to that in a minute. Yeah. But I can change my mind later. I mean, let me slowly tell you. Okay. So this is the Nami stool. So after I had a little like nice trip in Japan, I got inspired by the sort of minimalistic and sort of this Shinto-looking stools that I saw somewhere. So also this was the inspiration was taken from the char pai that we have here. So this is what we did. We made a stool out of it, and we call it Nami because Nami is a wave, and I wanted to give a little wave on top. And we've used Danish cords again. Again, another Nami side table. What I did was, it's a very, very small side table that I wanted for one of the rooms, and we gave it a little look of a basket, so it sort of reminds you of like where bamboo comes from, because usually it's done with like weaving of the basket, and when people come keep their things here, they'll feel, just closer to the material. Because we do like really experimental things with the finishes, one of the things that we tried recently was a charred bamboo. So we burnt like 1 mm outside of the bamboo, and that was the piece. So we did a chair. So it's a cute bench. 3-seater. And this teak, sorry? Because it's also antibacterial. Yeah. And stains are, I don't know the chemicals, because until now there's no such thing as stains for bamboo. You have stains for wood. So yeah, I mean, you can stain them. I stained some of the pieces as well. But then again, now the LPG thing happened, so I'm gonna turn to biogas now. So we're setting up a biogas place next to the workshop eventually, and yeah, use that. Because we have a lot of bio-litter from bamboo, so it works. So this teak as well, it's repurposed from an abandoned house. So I got the wood, we like sort of put it in the, I forgot the name of the machine. But anyway, sanded it, smoothened it, and we got it, yeah. This one collaboration I really enjoyed was with Ecolattice. It's a company based in London and Ahmedabad. What they do is they use, like, I don't know, waste plastic. They use waste plastic and they make like 3D printed lattice. So you can use it as foam and, I mean, it's very interesting for me. So I wanted to see how it reacts when it sits next to bamboo. Because it's a very modern, high technology material, and bamboo is like something that is handmade and handcrafted. So I wanted to see how that works. So we started with like, I sent them the drawings, we worked together, and this, I call this piece a bit nomadic because it came from 3 different places. It was, so we designed it in Pune and London, and then somebody like made it, part of it in Pune, like we crafted it, and the foam was made in Ahmedabad. And then we didn't even know how the assembly would look like because we wanted to display it together in an exhibition in Mumbai. So when we all landed, we put it together and it fit. The tricky part was like, we did a design where we had to slot in the piece. So there was no joints or anything. So, okay, the finished product looks something like this. So this was a double seat lounger that we did. And you see this, so what happened was when I saw that it was a very thick, heavy seat, right? So the thing was we needed a contrast because I wanted people to look at that like chair as well and sit on it. So little contrast was this cow hitch weave that we did. And it kind of like sort of balanced it out. Yeah, this is the detail.
Is it attached?
Yeah, it is. And you can put a table on it. So, I mean, in this picture we didn't, but there's a little table. You can put a tray, wine bottle, whatever you want. Yeah. It's actually like inspired from a date night. You can just go watch a movie and like sit, with your loved one. So one of the cool, so I also like did a couple of art installations. I'll quickly brush up on that. So this was in collaboration with Godrej Center of Plant Research, and we did this installation for Conscious Collective in Mumbai last year. So the brief that was given to me was I had to make an illusion of an infinity forest in the middle of 8 by 8 meter space in an art exhibition. So the idea was we did this. This was the outside. So there were 2 frames. One was slopey on the outside, and then the inside one, because we needed the reflective surfaces. Oh, you cannot see it properly here in this. Anyway, we put about 85 different endemic species of trees inside. And most of the people who came there just sat there for a long time because I'd kept 2 benches over there. So that was pretty cool. And they do amazing work in researching Western Ghats endemic species. So we put like all the panels outside. And the white fabric, we sort of weaved it in to give like a bit more depth to the structure. And also it looks quite tranquil. Yeah. This is another one that just got done. This was on for 2 months in Bajaj Environmental Center in Pune. Again, some environmental center. I only choose these kind of nice projects because I love forests. The theme was nature and how it affects you and how it helps you with seeing things differently and feeling things differently. So what we did was we made a structure like this, and this was India's first neuroaesthetic exhibition. So that was cool. So we had to create an exhibit which is immersive. So what we did was we made an Aeolian harp. So we put guitar strings, I think it was E string if I'm not wrong. I don't know. We put it around, but it failed a little bit because the winds were not there. But we got some winds in the evenings. So the idea was that you walk around and with the vibrations of the bamboo and the strings, you get these like really crazy sounds. And it's really nice to just walk around. Yeah. So this is what it looked like. Sorry?
It could be used for sound healing.
Yeah, it is. So I wanted to put it in the forest initially, but then I did it here, hence the wind thing I didn't consider. Yeah, okay. Sorry, just quick. So, with this whole journey for me, one thing that came very naturally was doing forest therapy. So I'm a forest therapy guide as well. With that, because it was my personal experience, because when I was sitting in the forest, like I slowly started to notice how I feel better. So hence I just started that as well. So yeah, I invite you guys whenever you're near Pune, just swing by. Just the last bit, okay? Okay. So for me, it's more like what's next. So I'll just explain you. We're setting up this bamboo lab, where also in the forest homestead as well, where it'll be a place where someone comes, they can see the bamboo growing, they understand the species. You can meet the craftsman, you can experience the forest, and eventually sit on a piece of furniture, which has emerged from this entire journey. So you can be there and experience all of it over there. So we're creating that space right now. Okay, I'd like to end it with this thought that. Okay, so I don't think bamboo is important because it can replace any material or it's some miracle material. But for me, it's just a very simple thing that bamboo just taught me how to bridge gaps between two different aspects of life or work that I do. So it's like forest and architecture. It's able to bridge the gap for me, and also the farmers and the consumers. So these things made me like fall in love with bamboo, and I hope after today you guys also love it as much as I do. So thank you so much. And thank you for listening. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Excellent. Guys, does anyone have one question for Priyanka?
Oh.
Bodhi has a question or a logistics thing? Question, what's up?
Oh, questions.
Quick one-on-one in terms of treating, so the solid bamboo that you showed,
Yeah.
that treatment is different from the hollow one.
Okay, so it's more about where you use it. So can you hear? Okay. So if it's in the interior, because you're touching it, so there's two types of treatments that you do, the chemicals that you use. One is CCB, that's chlorochrombromine. The second one is boric borax. So because you're touching it every day, it's something you don't want to touch chemicals, right? So it's like otherwise it's as good as touching plastic. So I recommend using in the interiors boric borax. And on the exterior, you can end up using CCB because otherwise the bamboo gets, it rots eventually. So, yeah. And then there are different techniques as well. Okay. So there's a dipping technique which is quite basic. Like you will dip it in the water, and because there's vascular bundles, they'll take the chemicals up. Yeah, so you can also drill holes, and there's this vacuum treatment where there's a machine, it completely vacuums, and when you put the chemical in, it sort of seeps into the interior because the borers that are the threat to the bamboo, they start eating the bamboo from inside, not from the outside. So because the outside, like I told you, it's very strong. So if it gets a way to go inside from the top or wherever, it's going to start eating it. So you have to be careful, yeah. Yes, but there is a thing you have to consider because the chemicals, right now what's happening, at least in Maharashtra, because I'm very much connected to that system right now, the problem is that people don't know what to do with the chemical. So, because it becomes like a sludge and people just throw it in the rivers. So I think people who know what to do with the waste can do it, I think, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.